Hello, YouTube. All right, so that was me noodling a bit on this Cannonball Midnight Curb Soprano. I decided to make a video about my soprano because when I was shopping for it, I didn't see a lot online. So if you are in the market for a soprano or a curb soprano or Cannonball or otherwise, hopefully this video helps you make an informed decision about, the what you can expect from Cannonball, at least, or a curved soprano. So, my first point that I want to mention is that I really like the saxophone. I'm very happy with my purchase. I had been wanting a soprano saxophone for years, and I would see those really tempting looking saxophones online that were about $300 or $400, and every time I tried one out, I always found that they sounded just absolutely terrible. The intonation was terrible. And so I would recommend, now having a little bit of time with this, um, actually spending a little bit more money to get a step up from one of those saxophones. And I think this is a great buy. I'm not a soprano player. I've actually only been playing soprano for about a week, and there is an adjustment. I think that this saxophone is different than alto or tenor. With alto and tenor, I think you can get away with buying a less expensive saxophone and buying a better mouthpiece. But I do think for the intonation, the soprano sax is just a very, just more challenging, and so having to not work as hard is important. So I feel like if there are intonation issues, it's more me than the saxophone, and that it is putting me in the ballpark of where I want to be, and it's not the saxophone holding me back at all. So for example, I found on some of those cheaper saxophones, the low E would always sound terrible. So if I walk down to E, let's say from a G, so going all the way down, I feel that it actually sounds very even. It feels natural, easy to play, and that E actually sounds like an E. That in my experience was always a note that stood out. Another note that often stood out to me was the middle C, and also G and A. I noticed not just on soprano, but on most saxophones, alto and tenor. That's where I tend to notice some stuffiness, is going from G to A specifically, and especially on the octave key. So I'll just play maybe a G major scale. I'll go G and I'll do an octave and a half. I'll go G to D. I'm not super comfortable with soprano yet, so I don't want to play anything too high. So we'll go G to middle to the palm D. Just those first few notes, that sounded very comfortable. That C sounded in tune to me. And again, I'm new to soprano, so I'm still working on it, but it felt like it was putting me in the ballpark. I've only had this for about a week, and I'm still working on getting comfortable with the saxophone. But it felt like this is allowing me to play fairly in tune. I feel like the intonation is really good. As far as curved sopranos, another thing I wanted to mention was if you are an alto tenor player primarily, I do like the curved soprano. I think it's worth considering over the straight soprano, not only because it's easier to mic, because you get the bell and the keys at the same time, but because you get that feedback, because the sound's coming right back up to you. If you have any questions about the saxophone, please, leave some comments down below, and I'm happy to try to answer them. So ultimately, highly recommend the saxophone. In my view, it's a professional saxophone. It may not be as good as a Yanagisawa or a Selmer. I actually don't know. Maybe it's close, but I don't think this would hold me back. I think it would be my practicing that would hold me back. So now the things that may be good or may be bad, depending on how you look at them. So a few things. First of all, it comes with two necks. So it also comes with a silver neck. This is the silver neck. And I've played it a little bit. To me, they sound very similar. I haven't played it enough to get the cork's always a little um, hard to push the mouthpiece. It's always a little thick, and then it compresses as you use it. So the only thing I noticed that's different is this is flatter because I'm not able to push the mouthpiece all the way on yet. But they play very similarly. I do think there's a slightly brighter sound with the silver, but I like the look of the Midknight, keeping the same finish for the saxophone. And because the necks are exactly the same, this could be considered a con because I'm imagining that there is a slight increased cost to having two necks instead of just one that matches. But some people might like it. They might like having a different look every now and then. And they might like having the two different finish choices because maybe sometimes they want a slightly brighter sound, maybe sometimes they want a slightly warmer sound. For me, I tend to pick one neck. I like the traditional neck on my alto, and I just sort of stick to that one. And I knew I wanted that, so it would be nice if there was an option to just pick one neck and maybe save a few bucks. So for me, that's a slight con, is that they're exactly the same. If they were different in some way, I think that would be a positive. But for others, that might be a positive, that it comes with two necks. The other slight con that I'll talk about is the mouthpiece. And there is a YouTuber online, Soprano Sax, who he really praised this mouthpiece. And I actually like the mouthpiece quite a lot, and that's why I'm giving it a negative, is that it was not in great working condition out of the box when I got it from brand new. I actually could hold it up to the light with the reed on it and see an air gap on the table. And so I had to flatten the table myself, and I did adjust the facing ever so slightly. I'm someone who feels comfortable doing this. But, as the mouthpiece that comes with the instrument, if you're an alto or tenor player primarily and you don't already own a good soprano sax mouthpiece, you may be like me and you may decide, I really want to wait and get comfortable with the instrument first learn how to play soprano, and then shop around for a really good mouthpiece, instead of buying one that you end up maybe growing out of or changing your mind about. So that was me, and so it's nice when the mouthpiece works right out of the box. This one has a lot of potential, and after adjusting it, I actually do like the sound. I do like the way it plays. It feels very comfortable, but I did have to do some adjustment, and also not being a soprano sax player, I had to be careful adjusting it because I wasn't sure about my preferences. And so I just tried to do some common sense things like make the table even, make sure that the facing curve was even. I did slightly open it, but the positive is it's a very nice, warm sounding mouthpiece. It's got a small square chamber, and I think that might help promote good intonation. It has very little baffle, maybe a slight rollover baffle, but not much baffle at all. And it is hard rubber, and so it's so close to being really good. My alto sax mouthpiece from Cannonball was the same. It was a very nice hard rubber, but that one was completely unplayable, and that was like one of those things that I just experimented with for I can't even count the hours to adjust till I got it playing in working condition. But that time I didn't care about it because I already had a good alto mouthpiece. This time I don't have a good soprano mouthpiece. I have this Rico, which is good. It's all right. But it's a cheap mouthpiece. Since the mouthpiece doesn't play, it could hold somebody back. And so that's the thing I worry about. And I know with professional saxophones, most people already have their mouthpiece. But for me, I think with soprano especially, most soprano people are already playing alto and tenor, and they're adding a soprano. So having to buy a mouthpiece without being comfortable with it, I think that's always a challenge. And so it's nice when the mouthpiece works. And so the mouthpiece does work now, and I really love the mouthpiece. Soprano Sax, Adrian from Soprano Sax, he praised the mouthpiece. He said it's one of his favorite soprano mouthpieces, and I can see why. In his video, when he holds it up to the light, he shows the chamber. He says the chamber is kind of crooked. And so I do think there's some quality control with the mouthpiece. That said, you can see some of it. So I think the Ligature and Cap look really cool. They are in the same finish as the saxophone. I wanted the Midknight, and I waited 5 months to get it. In fact, I'll do a short plug for the place where I bought this from. This was from Jakia, which is located in Riverside. If you're looking for a Cannonball, I can't recommend them enough. They, helped me get what I wanted, and just a great small business. And I love to support small business. Good pricing, and just excellent service. The person who runs the shop, she actually came in after hours because she was excited that the instrument came in, and she wanted me to get it sooner rather than wait over the weekend. And I can't say thank you enough to her. That was great. So I highly recommend Jakia and Riverside if you're in the Southern California Inland Empire area and are looking for a saxophone. The cap looks really cool, but if you try to put the cap on the mouthpiece, I've actually scratched the reed a little, or the ligature a little bit. It doesn't fit. And so those little things, it's like, okay, you're buying a professional saxophone, but the cap doesn't fit on the mouthpiece with the reed on it. That's a slight bummer, but not a huge deal, but a little bummer, so that's unfortunate from Cannonball, that those mouthpiece issues, they're so close. Maybe don't include a mouthpiece, and drop a few dollars so that someone can buy a good mouthpiece, or just somebody could quality control them and make sure that they, that the mouthpiece and the cap fit, and that the mouthpieces have, somewhat flat tables. Like it wouldn't do a pop test before. Now it does. So I adjusted it to do the pop test, and I'll show you. When you do the pop test, I might make an entire video just on this, because it seems to be a common problem with mouthpieces that they don't pass the pop test. You should be able to close the reed and create some suction, and you should be able to pause before you hear a pop. So there's a slight pause before the pop. That lets you know that the mouthpiece is sealing. It wouldn't do that at all when I first got it. I had to do some very small adjustments with some sandpaper and some glass on a flat surface. So, okay, so another slight con. Again, the saxophone itself, I love, but a slight con or positive, depending on your personal taste, in my view, is the case. Now, very, very cheap soprano saxophones come with sort of a gig baggy, sort of backpack looking case. That's one of the reasons I bought soprano, was so that I could carry it around. It's more portable. I love, the idea of having my saxophone on hand and getting to play it. And this case is what comes with it, which is great for, I think, brand recognition and marketing. Sort of this fake alligator look, but there's nowhere to put a strap to like be able to carry it, because I don't always want to have, two hands free, or I don't always have two hands free or a hand free. So it'd be nice to be able to kind of like put it on as a backpack. And I do see that some of those $400, $500 cheap sopranos do come with a more gig bag looking case. Obviously, it's a pro saxophone. I could buy a case for it. So that's not a huge con, but it would be nice if it came with it. That said, it may be a positive. You may like the way the case looks, and the case is very sturdy, and it supports two necks, so it is a very nice case when it comes to protecting the saxophone. But I'm not a huge fan of the look, and I'm not sure it's the most practical case, though it is very good. So that was my last con. So I'll end with noodling around on the saxophone a little bit more so you can hear it. And now that if you have any questions, please ask me below. Now, if you are looking at Cannonball, you might have a little bit more information to make a more informed decision. So.